Welcome back. The Hebrew word for the feeling of having joy over or with something means to spin around with exuberance, as in dance. Then Miriam, the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Exodus. They will come and shout with joy on the height of Zion. Then young women will dance and be glad, young men and old men too. I will turn their mourning to gladness. Jeremiah. Let them praise God's name with dancing and make music. Psalm 149. You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. Psalm 130. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Ecclesiasticus. Herodias' daughter did a murder dance, and the prodigal son's father hosted a celebration with dancing. Jesus condemns his generation for not dancing. We played the flute for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge and you did not mourn. So the thing about dance is that you don't have to be good at it in order to do it. You don't have to know anything about dancing in order to get up and move your body with the music that's in your ear or the tune that's in your head. But it isn't that easy, is it? No. My grandsons went to the Geneva Public Library story time this past week, and they were ecstatic about all the cool things that they did. But one of them, the older one, also emphatically did not like the dinosaur dance. Well, why not, I asked. Because I couldn't move my body like that, he said. Most of us have known that feeling before, more than a feeling, rather a limit of our physical capacity at a given moment. And I think many of us start out feeling pretty awkward and shy about dancing. Remember those preteen and teenage years? Dancing was all mixed up with raging emotions that were all a jumble inside. You really have to ask somebody to dance? Would he or she say yes if I asked? What if nobody wants to dance with me? What if I'm standing on the side waiting while everybody else is dancing? How close can we dance? Or how close do we have to dance? Or can I put my hand there? Or uh-oh, I'm not keeping the beat. Or shoot, I stepped on her foot. And other such feelings and emotions that don't necessarily go away with teenage years. I think one of the most difficult things for me to recover when I stopped drinking was dancing. I had always numbed myself with substances at dancing occasions, and so I felt like I could do anything, even though I probably shouldn't have. When I didn't have the buzz anymore, I was left with self-consciousness. Ugh, I can't dance. Oh, my legs are so heavy. Why can't I dance? I used to be able to dance. I'm not dancing. But thank goodness for weddings. Almost everyone dances at weddings and never pays attention to anyone else. So finally I realized that I don't have to be buzzed or drunk to dance because most everyone else already is and they won't notice me. Dancing is a great metaphor for sharing our spiritual wisdom. I hinted at this last week, but now I'll be more direct. Dancing without a buzz, dancing without an instructor, dancing without a partner even sometimes. That is what sharing our spiritual wisdom is like. It can bring both embarrassment and immense joy. By sharing our spiritual wisdom, I do not mean telling people what to believe And especially, I do not mean telling people what we believe. I mean sharing with them our moments of intimacy with the earth and its minions, with the sacred and the holy discovered in the ordinariness of life, and the precious gratitude we hold in our hearts for the gifts of love that have touched us. Sharing our spiritual wisdom is taking a piece of our heart and holding it out for another to take if they choose their choice once we offer it. But that is the vulnerability that never goes away with dancing. Sharing our spiritual wisdom is taking a piece of awe or gratitude or joy and finding a way to wrap it in simple words that we can offer to somebody else. You see, it's taking an experience that we've had and offering it to somebody else in an intimate act of vulnerability. And if they choose to receive it, and if they engage with us in entering into the sharing, well then we will have created a new experience of the holy for both of us. And what I'm talking about is it's kind of like a prime number that's whole and can't be divided by anything other than itself and one. Sharing our spiritual wisdom is sharing our experiences of love, awe, mystery, and the presence of God, and pondering it together in such a way that it opens us to a new insight, a new possibility, a new understanding, a new perspective. It's not transactional. There's no quid quo pro. Rather, it's simply inviting someone else to dance with the holy that is present and swarming around us in every moment. They don't get anything and we don't expect anything from it because it's not a transaction. It is an intimacy. When both enter into it to enjoy and learn while the music of the moment still plays. Did David really dance in his underwear? And did Herod really cut off the head of a prophet to reward a nubile dancer? I don't know. But who would make up such stories to stash them in the vault of millennial memories? I apologize in advance for being on such a granddad kick lately, but my experiences in the past several weeks have been stamped with the energy and thinking of 3- and 5-year-olds. As breakfast was winding down one day, I told a long winding story about the invention of the bagel by Mr. Arthur Bagel. To my surprise, I had the rapt attention of both of my grandsons as I made up a silly story about one of their favorite breakfast foods. Who knew that a made-up story about Mr. Bagel and economies of scale, which was the underlining theme, would keep the attention of such young boys for almost 5 minutes. At the end, as I dug back into my own now cold bagel, and as the older one has learned to do, he asked, "Is that really true, Granddad?" "Nope, I just made it up," I said, as his face kind of melted in disappointment. "But like all stories," I reminded him, "it has some truth in it." While my new tact lost the attention of the 3-year-old, the 5-year-old wanted to know how a false, non-factual story could be true or have truth embedded in it. And that was an opportunity for me to tell him about the Bible, don't you know? I told him about how people, before they could read and write, told stories to hand down wisdom and knowledge from one generation to the next. And that even after reading and writing was possible, most people didn't know how for thousands and thousands of years. So stories, I said, were the suitcases in which understanding and know-how were carried from granddads to grandsons. And this is the most important part, if you want a story to be remembered, then it better be a good story like Mr. Arthur Bagel. That way you can sneak a truth or an explanation into the story and it'll get remembered too. Now the storyteller Mark has just finished telling us about that Jesus said, prophets are not without honor except in their own hometowns and among their own kin and in their own house. He doesn't want them to forget the truth, so he wraps it in a really juicy story about Herod taking his wife's brother in an explicitly sexual dance that reduced him to idiocy. And then the most famous prophet of their time had his head cut off and served up on a silver platter. Come on! I mean, how are you going to forget a story like that or the truth about the prophets that's wrapped in it? But as good as stories are, and as much as I like to tell them, the punchline of this sermon is about the intimate act of sharing our spiritual wisdom with others and one another. So I will stick my neck out here and conclude with sharing something with you that holds wisdom deeply personal and important to me. I wrote this poem over a decade ago in response to Psalm 139, which is my favorite psalm. But it never felt right to me or complete somehow to let it out, complete enough to let it out of the box. But now it will be published in my next book. Did I mention it was coming out in December? So while this poem has to do with many things, learning to dance again is a metaphor for allowing God to wick through our powerlessness in order to become open, in order for us to become open to healing, is the primary one. I offer it also as an example of the intimate act of sharing our sacred wisdom with those we care about. So I'll close with this. Psalm 139. What if I could dance again? What if, with tendons pulled like taffy and my fibrous heart softening, these brittle toes uncurling, I could dance again? Your love is kneading these petrified muscles toward doughy freshness. You press upon me behind and before, suckling notes and fluid rhythm up from suddenly nimble hips. What if I could dance again? Your presence is wafting through innermost thoughts, opening hidden doors behind my eyes, wicking nectar from wells that had run dry. If I whisper back a wet kiss from deep within darkened silence, will the fret of my broken days twirl the ginger of my restless nights? If you lay your hand upon me, I will fathom prenatal dreams and unfurl nascent hope and whisper unspoken passion while writing the poetry of labor and birth. If you answer a single prayer, the muscle of my heart, still gnarled like hickory, will animate both feet, and I will dance again. Granddad, is it really true? It's true that I wish you peace.